Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is John Cookian. This is Cookian's Courtroom, and today we're going to be talking about 21-year-old beauty YouTuber James Charles and this recent huge scandal which has exploded over the weekend regarding him and a minor. James Charles has denied accusations that he groomed a 16-year-old boy. James claims that the boy lied about his age when they were speaking. However, the boy shows evidence from his perspective that he did not lie, and he was actually very vocal about how old he was on all of his social medias and in private chat messages. For reference, the boy was 16 years old. James claims that the boy lied about his age and said that he was 18 years old when he was in fact 16. And in addition to this, James has also released a huge statement. Why don't we just read that statement together now? Trigger warning, grooming/paedophilia. There's a video going round about me on TikTok and Twitter of a guy calling me a groomer, and I want to address it right away. The accusation that I have groomed this person is completely false. Last week, I came across someone on my Instagram Explore page, saw he followed me and added him on Snapchat. The next morning, I woke up to several snaps from this person being excited. I added him back, saying he loved me, and also lewd photos of himself in the shower. I asked how old he was right away, and he told me he was 18, so I started flirting back. In the excitement of meeting someone I thought could potentially be great, I didn't ask for a copy of his ID or passport. It's now clear, based on the video he uploaded, that he was taking photos of me with another device and had an ulterior motive from the beginning. Later that day, he said a few things that made me question the validity of his original age answer, and when I asked him to confirm his age once again, he admitted he was 16. I told him I was really uncomfortable and apologised for flirting, but he insisted on continuing talking, saying that it could be our little secret. He's a fan of mine and would never tell anyone. I told him I wasn't okay with this. He started getting upset, and at this point I unfriended him. We haven't spoken since. I'm not victim blaming him or victimizing myself either, simply sharing what happened, and what happened was not okay. After false allegations like this in the past, I would never knowingly engage with anyone underage and put my life on the line for a few Snapchats. Because of situations like this, instead of taking someone's word for it, I will now ask to see ID or passport of every guy I have a conversation with. So that's James's statement. I'm not going to use the name of the guy that James had these allegations raised against him with, because he's obviously very young and he's a minor, so it wouldn't be appropriate. However, I am going to tell you what this boy has said. First of all, can I just say, by the way, I don't know exactly because I don't date younger people, but would it not be obvious that if you're dating younger people and you're really into guys at that childish age and look, would it not be a smart idea to really check how old every single person is that you date? Because surely if you're into dating boys that look like children, it would be a smart idea to make sure they're not actually children. That's probably just the first thing I would say. Sorry to put that out there, but especially if you are a huge celebrity, because bear in mind that's James's statement. That does not mean that that is the truth. We do not know what truly happened here, and the 16-year-old boy has given a completely different account of events here. So let's go through his side of the story. The 16-year-old boy posted on his Snapchat story some evidence of James Charles basically sending him nudes. So James said in his statement flirting, but there's a difference between flirting and sending nudes, right? Just put that out there. Now, to go against James's story, James says that the boy sent the photos and James was just really uncomfortable with the whole thing. But the boy says that James actually sent the photographs and then asked him for photos in return. And then that's where things became uncomfortable. Now, this video was removed from Twitter for nudity and indecent exposure and stuff like that. Twitter hasn't given an official statement on the situation, but they have just reinforced their policy that they don't condone posting of nudity against people's consent or without people's consent on their platform. So it does sound like there were actually some nude photographs of James posted, which doesn't really align with what James said. James did not say oh, I sent him nudes back. He kind of just said flirting. There's a difference between sending an indecent photograph of yourself naked and flirting, surely, or have times changed? I don't know. For me, flirting is texting someone and being a bit cheeky, do you know what I mean? Or using the eggplant emoji one time. That's flirting for me. I didn't realize sending pictures of your bumhole, for example, is flirting. I thought that's just something completely different. After that happened, the boy posted a series of tweets on Twitter claiming that James knew exactly how old he was from the beginning. Most of these tweets have been deleted. I do have some photographs, and one of them just shows from someone else that posted this guy's TikTok. I'll blur out the username so you can't see it, but you can see at the top he has the number 16 saying his age and then his pronouns. Now, one thing to also remember here is that you can edit these things, so he could have put this number in afterwards. It would be difficult now unless someone has evidence to prove what his TikTok username was when he first started speaking to James. That's one thing to also remember. One of the tweets that this boy posted, and I'm going to read this so I get it word perfect. If you're going to text someone, make sure you know their age. He added me on Insta. My Insta has my TikTok, which shows my age, at James Charles. This boy also uploaded a video of him talking to one of his friends, saying that just after he told James Charles he was only 16 years old, James asked for more photos of his body. After James gave his statement, this boy posted another statement on Twitter. I'm going to read that for you now. The boy said, "James, we both know I blocked you. You never asked for my age. After I told you I was 16, you proceeded to ask me for nudes and said it didn't matter. You called me hot and said I wish the timeline could speed up so you could be 18. Now, this is also really interesting because on Snapchat, I'm sure one person can block the other, but you can't both block each other, right? Like it's kind of like once one person blocks the other, you can't find the other account. And it does show here that it looks like this boy was the one that blocked James Charles, which is really interesting because James obviously said in his statement that he was the one that blocked this boy. So something isn't adding up here. And so far, only the 16-year-old boy has come through with actual evidence from what we can see that this is actually the truth. So we're going to have to wait and see if James can prove he actually blocked this boy as he said he did. Right? Because right now, it looks like he could be lying. Let's not forget this all ties back to 2019 when James had this huge scandal where Tati Westbrook and Jeffree both teamed up against him and just basically said that he was grooming a boy and put a lot of social pressure on him, that they met at a restaurant to go to his room and spend time together and do stuff like that. And it was basically calling him a bit of a predator. Now, this is where I'm wondering if their message was exaggerated, but there was some substance to it, because it didn't sound like he was a predator, because the boy came forwards and I defended James at the time. And the boy said, no, he kind of came over, he was texting me, we kissed a bit, he was a bad kisser, and then he left, and then that was it. We didn't do anything. There was no pressure. There's nothing weird like that. That's what the young guy said that James was with that time. However, the whole approach of going after someone in a predatory way is different to actually being a sexual predator, obviously. So if he was chasing this boy in a way that concerned Tati, you know, almost being very thirsty, that's obviously not what Tati said. She kind of went way beyond that. And I think we can all admit something really bad happened with Tati and Jeffree teaming up. But it does almost seem like there's some sort of substance there. Now, some inside tea for you. As always, you know, I have inside stories about various different things like this. I know that James reached out to a channel, and I can't name that channel, but there was a conversation that was had about James either teaming up with Tati to bring Jeffree down or teaming up with Jeffree to bring Tati down. It was one or the other. For anyone wondering, Tati Westbrook has disappeared off YouTube completely for a long time. I personally think it's because she's involved in a $5 million lawsuit where she's being sued because, you know, when she released Halo Beauty, she did it with this guy that was super, super knowledgeable with, they call it nutraceuticals, but just these pills, right? These food pills with compounds inside them. And he basically did most of the work from my understanding. That's just what I've grasped from the situation, in my opinion. And the reason that they did this deal was this guy was told, it's not going to be that profitable for him just doing Halo Beauty, but every future product in color cosmetics, in eyeshadow palettes will also be done with him, with his manufacturing. So it had the potential to really be quite a huge profitable contract, much more profitable than just Halo Beauty alone. So that's where things get controversial. Tati then did, was it Tati Beauty it was called? And she didn't do it with him, despite the fact she allegedly had a business deal with him, explicitly stating that she would do it with him, and that's the only reason that he likely did Halo Beauty with her in the first place. So obviously he wasn't happy because he's been completely screwed over. And let's not forget there was a YouTube channel that actually exposed Tati's husband scamming his family out of millions of dollars worth of real estate by convincing a dying family member to sign it away to him instead of all of them. And they took him to court and actually won. And that was in recent years. So again, these are all just allegations. I'm not going to present the court evidence and go through the stats, but this just gives some context of the situation. Tati's really found herself in a difficult position, and I think that's why she has disappeared. And obviously Jeffree has also disappeared, and I feel like this toxic group of YouTubers that really dominated the platform for such a long time in beauty have one by one got so greedy that they've really just burnt themselves out. Jeffree burnt off Manny and Laura, which I'm not mad about. But then, Tati and Jeffree start fighting, Trisha and Jeffree start fighting. All these people that kind of fed off each other and grew off each other have all sort of fallen to pieces. Nikki Tutorials going backwards and forwards to Jeffree, backwards and forwards to Jeffree. There's not many of them left now that are really that relevant, right? And it's almost like James is the last one left, the last one standing from that group of people. Jeffree's been knocked off. Okay, so I'm going to show you the video on screen, but what I'm going to do is just blur out the face. So this is posted publicly on Twitter, but we're just going to give him some anonymity.
And I've always looked up to him, so I was excited to get his message back. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to post proof of it right now. This is the notification that I got when he Snapchatted me first. And just for further proof, he deleted the chat. I don't know what he deleted, but that's me opening his Snapchat. I went into the bathroom, and I guess he saw the bathroom light, so he started making the conversation very sexual, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I'll post some of the stuff that he sent me now. You can't see it because it's blurry, because I took it on my iPad, because I don't want him to see that I screenshotted it, but I'll post it right now.
Okay, so there's this screenshot, and we're going to try and read it together, of a message that James allegedly sent the boy. Send me a vid where you, put your phone down in the shower and record hands and a floating something showing your muscles and hair. I think that's what it says. Again, that could be Photoshop, but it does look like that's what James said, which is obviously very, very different to James's statement about just being utterly disgusted, about what this boy said. Here's another one, and the boy's transcribed it, and it says, "I bet you can make me finish just by flexing and showing off your hair, body hair, haha, without even taking your out." I mean, the boy has the screenshots. I can't say that they're true or not true, but there's more validity to a boy showing screenshots and showing that he blocked James than James just giving this blanket statement calling the boy a liar, which, bear in mind, James has a huge platform, right? So I know people might be saying maybe the boy just wants attention, but realistically, James going to millions and millions and millions of people, publicly calling this boy a liar and calling him out on all these things, it's a big deal. And if James is lying, then he's basically making out this kid to be in the wrong when the kid is not in the wrong. So I fully understand why, if the kid is being truthful, why he would speak out about it, because otherwise it's his name being brought down. And I guess he's wanting to bring awareness to the fact that James is obviously doing this, if it's true.
So after sending me that first picture of his body, explicitly, he sent me multiple after that, and I'll post them now.
Oh, wow. Okay, so James in his statement, I think he likes to play with the truth a bit here. In the video, James has posted pictures of his nudes, right? Like, obviously I'm going to put them on the screen, but they're going to be covered so you can't see the bits and pieces. But it looks like James has sent this child nude photographs, which is not what James said in his statement whatsoever. That is just crazy. So this boy's alleging that he told James's age and that James came back and said, "I haven't even got to see your yet," right? 5-year age gap. The boy is 16 years old.
And after telling him, no, I'm not gonna send it to you, he kept on asking for pictures and videos of body hair and me flexing and stuff. He proceeded to ask to FaceTime me, which I then said no to, and then I asked why. And this is what he said.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and read for you the quality. I can't read it. Just take your shirt off. I can't read it that well.
It's sad to say that I can't even look up my biggest influence the same again. I've heard multiple stories about him doing this to people, but you never believe it until it happens to you. So now I'm a big believer of what James Charles does to other people, and it sucks because he has so much going for him, and he does this to himself.
I think another thing worth mentioning here is that if this boy was making the whole thing up, James is a huge influencer and he has a lot of money. He charges a lot for his sponsorships, right? So James would be in a very comfortable position to sue this boy for lying, right? But this boy is coming through with screenshots, with evidence from the beginning. And I do think that James almost tried to play the victim by saying, this guy had ulterior motives and he took photographs of the screen. Yes, I do think it's questionable that this boy was taking pictures of the screen, but ultimately, James shouldn't have been sending nudes to a 16-year-old. And I do also think that if you're sending nudes to a complete stranger you've never met and you've spoken to very briefly, I think there's something about that where I do think it's kind of a liability. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people online have been saying that they're concerned about James chasing relationships and sexual imagery and stuff like that with 16-year-old boys when he's 21 now. Because if that's when you're 16, for example, if you want to be in a relationship with a 16-year-old, maybe it's natural, right? But for a 21-year-old, you're thinking, does the taste not change? Are you going to be 30, 40, 50 and still wanting to be with 16-year-olds? So that's the concern that some people have had online. I've just been reading that. In addition, other people have been saying it's quite narcissistic that you would engage in this way with someone that's obviously a fan. Surely that's the last person that you would be wanting to get romantic with and send nudes to. It's almost a bit like praise me, praise me, praise me, right? And this boy seems very forward, and he backed up with evidence that James was constantly asking for photos of his body hair and flexing and stuff like that. And I mean, this boy's 16, and if everything he said is true, James is absolutely objectifying him, and there's absolutely no excuse for that. It's not acceptable. This is a child, and I don't believe James's statement to be fully sincere. I think he's very socially and politically correct, but that doesn't mean it's truthful, and that's another thing to keep in mind as well. So ultimately, my closing thoughts. In the past, James has actively, publicly defended people with very, very questionable behaviour against minors. That is a fact. right? We're talking Jeffrey, we're talking various other scandals in the past that have happened. James is very vocal about often defending these people when he doesn't know the facts and he wasn't there, but he's happy to step forwards and defend people that are being accused of talking to 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So I do have to question, he obviously has some sort of bias here, right? It seems like he's perfectly okay with the idea of like very young boys being objectified. And if everything here is true, I do think it presents an issue, not just for now, but also for the past of how many other boys have been involved with James, with him behaving like this, and also for the future about if this behaviour is realistically just going to continue, because so far every toxic trait that we've seen from James Charles has continued. There's not really been any growth. It tends to just be better avoidance of getting into serious trouble or knowing where the boundaries are of how far you can go. So I've defended James a lot in the past, but this really sickens me. I think it's very unfair. This is a child. And I think to be putting them in this position and accusing them of being a liar and saying that you're the one that's blocked them and you were disgusted, when obviously that's not the case because there's these screenshots and this obviously photograph of them showing that James has been blocked. I do think that there's more to be said here, and I'm going to keep an eye on it for you. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash the like button every time you do a titty flies into space. I'm John Cookian. This is Cookian's Courtroom, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.